We'll go ahead and get started with the June 25th, 2024 board meeting for the Board of Waterworks Trustees. The first item on our agenda is the consent agenda, which includes the minutes from the May 28th, 2024 Board of Waterworks Trustees meeting, the minutes of the June 4th, 2024 Finance and Audit Committee meeting, the minutes of the June 11th, 2024 Planning Committee meeting, financial statements, list of payments for May 2024, summary of CEO approved expenditures in excess of $50,000, and the next meeting date of July 23rd, 2024. Is there anything within that consent agenda that Ted or anyone else would like to pull out?
Nothing for me.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all approve of the consent agenda, say aye.
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 Moving forward into action items, our first, oh geez, thank you. Moving into our second item, which is our public comment period. Is there anyone here from online or in person that would like to take advantage of this comment period? Not seeing or hearing any, we'll move on from the public comment period into our action items. And our first action item is a motion to intervene the Saylorville Dam hydroelectric project application.
Andrea, this is an item that we bring before the board is more as much of a procedural thing as anything, but there's a developer who develops these hydroelectric projects across the country who has submitted a preliminary permit application to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission seeking permission to construct a hydroelectric facility at Saylorville Dam. As the board knows, Des Moines Waterworks owns capacity in Saylorville Reservoir. And so we want to ensure that whatever is done isn't going to interfere with the capacity that we have or the rights that we have to withdraw water and use water in periods of drought. That contract and those rights will actually be transferring to Central Iowa Waterworks. And so Central Iowa Waterworks will also be asking that board tomorrow to authorize essentially the same motion from Central Iowa Waterworks, and then we'll plan to do this jointly. And what this does is just simply gets us on the list of stakeholders who need to be involved in the process and consulted during the permit application review. I will note that the motion is attached. There's another attorney from the Dickinson firm, Brennan Eddy, who's also going to be involved in this. And there was a revised version of that I neglected to get in the packet, but the rest of it is all there, including the application for permit. We're looking for authorization to submit this motion to him.
So we are looking for a motion to authorize legal counsel to submit a motion to intervene to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission regarding the Saylorville hydroelectric project preliminary permit application on behalf of Des Moines Waterworks.
So
Second.
Any discussion, questions? Has this already been in front of Central Iowa?
it is not. They will see it at their board meeting tomorrow.
Any other questions on this item? Okay. All in favor of the motion on the table, say aye.
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 Any opposed? On to item 3B is to receive and file the 2023 audit reports.
Andrea, our accounting firm RSM, our auditors reviewed, they've completed the audit. They submitted or they issued an unmodified or clean opinion of our financial statements, meaning that they didn't find any material misstatements within the financial statements. They presented their findings for not only the Des Moines Waterworks financials, but also financials for us as collection agent for the sewer, solid waste, and stormwater enterprise funds for the city of Des Moines. They presented all that information at the June 4th meeting of our Finance and Audit Committee. And so today we are here asking the board to receive and file those audit reports as submitted by RSM.
So can someone make a motion to receive and file the 2023 financial audit reports and distribute reports to the appropriate agencies?
So
Second. Any questions on this item? Right. Then we'll take a vote on the motion on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 3C is a note to exceed 15 million or not to exceed 15 million water revenue capital loan notes. A resolution fixing date for a meeting on the proposition to authorize a loan and disbursement agreement and the issuance of notes to evidence the obligations thereunder.
yeah, Andrew, that's a mouthful, but in anticipation of expansion of the Saylorville Water Treatment Plant, we will be constructing 2 transmission main segments. The first of these 2 is what we're referring to as the Saylorville Water Treatment Plant West Feeder Main Phase 3. The contract has been awarded and it's ready to begin. We are going to take out a $15 million SRF loan in order to pay for that. And that debt will be transferred to Central Iowa Waterworks at the time of operation commencement. So ultimately the debt will transfer, but we will be taking it out as Des Moines Waterworks initially. And in order for us to execute the loan and disbursement agreement, Des Moines Waterworks has to hold a public hearing and pass a motion at our next meeting. So today's action, simply asking that the board set the date of that public hearing as the date of the July meeting.
Okay. I need a motion and a roll call vote to adopt the resolution fixing date for a meeting on the authorization of a loan and disbursement agreement and the issuance of not to exceed 15 million water revenue capital loan notes of the city of Des Moines, state of Iowa, and providing the publication of notice thereof. So moved.
Second.
Andrew, I've got a question.
Sure.
Ted, without going into too much detail, could you explain to me how Des Moines Waterworks transfers this to Central Iowa Waterworks and maybe what the timing of that transfer would be?
I can, Graham, but I'm going to ask Amy to do it more eloquently.
Okay.
We have worked with the Iowa Finance Authority as part of the development of Central Iowa Waterworks and those activities. And there are still, details to be worked out, but the debt will transfer with the assets. And so that's something that we'll be working on from now until the end of the year, assuming that we maintain a January 1st operation.
So then Des Moines Waterworks would take another vote when we transfer this, or is that just coupled with what, all the assets we're transferring, assets and I guess debts?
Maybe more for legal counsel, but I believe it would be wrapped up into one aspect.
One.
Or resolution.
Likely, I mean, there will need to be public hearings on the asset transfer piece because we're going to be transferring real estate. And so I think as long as IFA has agreed to the terms of the transfer, I don't know that we will vote necessarily on this piece unless IFA wants you to vote on it.
I got you. Yeah, I got you. I was just trying to think through, I guess, that broader question of, how we transfer assets and debts and whether it's going to be one, and that can be a discussion for later, but that's helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Then we have a motion to adopt the resolution fixing date for a meeting on the authorization of a loan and disbursement agreement. We need a roll call vote on this matter. Yes.
Yes.
I'm having some trouble hearing, so I don't hear my name.
Mr. Gillette?
Yes.
Ms. Hubert? Yes. Ms. Moines?
Yes. Motion passes and we'll move on to item 3D, which,
For purposes of the minutes, I just want to note that the language of the resolution indicating the chair has declared the resolution adopted be included in its entirety from the.
yes,
board packet here.
yes. Absolutely. Okay. Our next item is the Water Revenue Capital Loan Notes Series 2024 resolution declaring an official intent under Treasury Regulation 1.150-2 to issue debt to reimburse the utility for certain original expenditures paid in connection with specific projects.
Andrea, Des Moines Waterworks intends to use tax exempt debt from the state revolving fund loan program to finance treatment and transmission projects related to the Saylorville plant. Because of the way these projects work and the fact that there are expenses and things that have to be done before the actual construction commences, the IRS has provisions that allow us to begin those projects before or begin accumulating costs before the project actually happens. But we have to establish a date, pass a resolution. But the IRS allows for a look back period of 60 days prior to the execution of this resolution, so that we can get reimbursed for things that happened, work that had to be done, easements and that kind of thing. We're going to be seeking payment or authorization to execute the tax exempt debt through the state revolving loan fund in the coming months for Saylorville Water Treatment Plant West Feeder Main Phase 3, one we just talked about, and for the Polk County Pumping Station Aquifer Storage and Recovery Well. So at this point, it's time for us to pass this resolution to allow reimbursement for expenses that happened up to the start of construction. So we're here today asking the board to pass that resolution so that we can start the clock on reimbursement.
Great. So I need a motion to adopt the resolution declaring an official intent under Treasury Regulation 1.150-2 to issue debt to reimburse the utility for certain original expenditures paid in connection with specific projects. So moved.
Second.
Any questions regarding this, especially as it relates to the previous item?
As we get deep into the tax and finance world, I'm assuming this is fairly standard. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it if possible, but
And I will say, I think it is fairly standard. We haven't used a lot of SRF debt historically, so this is kind of dipping our toe into this, but we do plan to use more debt. And specifically because it's easier to transfer the debt with the assets than it would be to transfer bond indebtedness or other kinds of debt. But I think within the SRF world, this is fairly typical to have this kind of a resolution. And Amy's shaking her head, yes. So.
Right, and it's really tax exempt debt, not even necessarily related to SRF. So this just puts a stick in the ground so that we can reimburse expenditures. We incur some prior to the actual loan.
Have we
It's a fail-safe.
already had any expenditures within that 60-day look back?
We have related to The west feeder main,
Mhm.
we have had some expenditures. We actually had some easements that we paid in February so prior to the look back. And we're working with IFA and PFM, who's our municipal advisor. They were included in the planning and design loan application. And so we're working out if they'll be reimbursed through the actual P and D loan or if we'll do something else. But we are incurring expenses and even some expenses required. I'm not concerned that we won't be reimbursed for those.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? We have a motion on the table and need a roll call vote.
Ms. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Gillette,
Yes.
Ms. Hubert. Yes. Ms. Funds.
Yes. That motion passes.
That's the resolution that'll be included in minutes as declared by the chair.
Great. Moving on to item 3E. A request authorization to issue purchase order for meter transmitting units.
Andrea, meter transmitting units are the units that are installed on every home and business, and they transmit the meter read to our meter reading system from every meter in the system. They have a defined life and we've had a number of them fail. And during the pandemic, we had trouble getting them, and so we have quite a few of them that are beyond their useful life out in the system. In 2023, last year, field customer service installed 10,000 new MTUs, which is a good thing because that helps us eliminate estimated reads. And actually for 2024, we had one of our strategic plan KPIs targeted specifically at reducing the number of estimated reads that are in large part related to the fact that these MTUs have reached the end of their useful life and they're not reporting on a regular basis. The good news here is that the field customer service team, Rob's team, Rob Allison is here. He supervises that team. That group of folks, with help from pretty much everyone in customer service in terms of scheduling and planning and getting these units out, have reduced our estimates from 12.1% at the beginning of the year to 5.7%. So cut the estimates more than in half. Our goal is 2.5%. But in order to get there, we're going to have to purchase some more MTUs because they have used the full inventory that we had planned for this year. So we've done a little looking in the budget. They have done a little looking in the budget. Working with finance and engineering, they've identified some carryover funds from last year that hadn't yet been allocated. And so we're proposing to spend about $234,000 to buy just over 2,000 additional MTUs so that team can keep up the pace and work towards meeting that goal of getting estimates down to 2.5%. So we're here today to request authorization to issue a purchase order and use those unallocated funds to buy more MTUs.
I need a motion to authorize staff to issue a purchase order to Aclara Technologies LLC in the amount of $233,928 for MTUs.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Right, moving on to item 3F. This is a request authorization for CEO and general manager to issue a purchase order to Superior Industrial Equipment for purchase of parts to rebuild Floor Drive West High Lift Pump number 1.
Andrea, our West High Lift pumps, there are 3 of them were installed in about 2003. They get a lot of use. And recently we had the manufacturer come in and evaluate those pumps, and they suggested that it was time that we should repair a lot of the wear parts and upgrade all 3 of those pumps. 2 of the 3 have already been upgraded. the last one, West High Lift Pump number one is 2,000 horsepower pump, a 30 million gallon per day pump, an incredibly important part of our system. What we're doing here today is we just want to order the parts. They're long lead time, single source from the manufacturer of the pump. We want to get those here, and then once they're here, then we'll have another, we'll have a contract to install that, those pumps. But here today, we're just requesting authorization, to issue a purchase order, about $254,000 to get those parts purchased and on their way so that we can get them installed in our down season, our low season, in the fall of the year. I would point out too that, this is an asset that will transfer to Central Iowa Waterworks. All this has been reviewed with the tech committee, and everyone's supportive moving forward with the project.
So we need a motion to authorize staff to issue a purchase order to Superior Industrial Equipment in the amount of $254,485.20 for providing parts required to rebuild Floor Drive West High Lift Pump number one. Second. So did I miss why this doesn't include anything beyond the parts?
Well, I don't know that you missed it, but it's such a long lead time. We're expecting something like 24-week lead time. And so to try to bid a contract for someone to purchase them and install them 24 weeks from now, or 6 or 8 months from now.
But the shipping costs?
Um,
No, you want shipping costs is when you purchase your parts.
I'm afraid I don't understand the question.
The bullet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 said that the purchase order does not include the repairs, as you mentioned,
Oh, yeah,
or the shipping costs.
right. Well, we're just asking for permission to issue the purchase order to the pump manufacturer. Then we will also have to pay the shipping costs. But
Is that gonna have to come back to us?
no, that's within my spending
Okay.
authority.
Okay,
And then depending on how much it costs to install them, we may have to bring back the installation contract, but that'll be 6 months from there.
the installation contract makes sense. I just
Yep.
wasn't sure about that shipping costs and if that's something we're gonna have to bring back that didn't make, why can't we just
Oh,
do it all together?
No, I understand.
Okay,
And the reason is that I will be able to approve that. But I just can't approve the 254,000 for the parts. So
Okay.
we'll get you to approve that. We'll get them shipped, and then depending on the amount of the installation contract, we may or may not have to bring that back to.
okay.
But that'll be 6 months.
Okay, so was this a budgeted repair?
Oh, I believe that it was. Kyle, can you tell me that? Nathan is online.
Yes, this was included in the budget.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We have a motion to authorize staff to issue the purchase order. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Item 3G is a license agreement with the city of Des Moines for placement of data collector equipment for radio frequency meter reading system on various city-owned properties.
Andrea, we talked about the MTUs that broadcast the reads from each property, and they actually send them to these DCUs, which are data collection units that we have all over the city of Des Moines. We have a network of those. Somewhere in here it tells me how many of them we have across the city, but many of those data collectors are mounted on city tornado siren poles, which is a great place because they're spaced at about the right distance so that we can get our DCUs placed kind of in the right pattern. We've been partnering with the city for over 20 years in terms of mounting those things on those poles and even on other city facilities. But right now, the city of Des Moines is going to upgrade their outdoor warning system And so they're gonna be installing new poles adjacent to the existing poles, and then they're gonna abandon the existing poles. So we are going to need to move our equipment onto their poles. They're gonna allow us to move it, but we're gonna update the agreement. The agreement that we have with the city to allow us to have those DCUs on about 30 of their poles across the city. The city of Des Moines is already moving this agreement through their process. On June 17th, the city council set a hearing for approval of the agreement. On July 15th, council has reviewed the agreement. Staff recommends authorization of this new license agreement with the city for use of siren poles as data collector sites for our meter reading system across the city.
So can I have a motion to authorize execution of license agreement with the city of Des Moines for placement of data collector equipment for radio frequency meter reading system on various city-owned properties?
So moved.
Second.
Fine, second.
I have a question on this.
Yep.
To me, this seems like more of an operational thing. There's no fiscal impact. Why would this type of thing come?
Well,
I'm just asking.
Is it the license agreement? Is it a?
it's an agreement and I don't know, it's not a 2080 agreement, is it?
It's not,
No.
and I might ask Laura to speak up, but the initial licensing agreement came to the board years ago. So we thought for clean records, we would bring this.
It's a reasonable question though, John. Would it have to
Yeah.
come to the board?
I would say in the absence of a clear direction from the board and policy manual like we've done with the spending authority, I think it'd be better for the board to approve it so that, you know, I don't know what the city's expectations are about the authority of whoever signs this on behalf of the waterworks, but it certainly would make them feel better that the agreement's gonna be binding on us. To have the board have approved it in advance of signing it.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it at all. It's just it looks so operational,
Yeah.
you know, we're gonna move this from this pole to this.
Mhm.
I think the reason to bring it to the board here is because there are provisions in here regarding indemnification of the city in the event that there's any injuries related to mounting and moving the devices.
Thank you.
I have a question too about metering.
Mhm.
And this is just a general curiosity question. A few years ago, the electric industry went through a big thing about smart meters. And the collection gave, the utilities real-time usage information through the metering so that they could do data analysis and figure out, you know, who was using it when. And also do remote connects and disconnects. And is there anything like that in the water industry? Has there been movement towards smart meters? Very controversial with people. People got it all mixed up into privacy rights and that kind of thing, but
Right.
I just wondered where the industry is on that
The-
kind of metering and.
The technology is certainly available in the water industry. And we're reading meters how often?
Hourly for every 6 to 12 hours. So we are getting that full time water consumption,
So we,
depending on the technology.
so we have some of that ability to read them more frequently and analyze water usage. Maybe not to the granular level that you're talking about with the smart metering. We don't have any ability to turn people's water on and off with a smart meter. I don't know that we've looked at that technology.
They do exist.
They do exist.
But they are not as effective. I mean, there've been some issues, and so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's something like this.
Yeah, I mean, on the electric side, people were interested in that because you didn't have to do truck rolls. You saved
Yeah,
money there.
that would be nice. I'm not familiar with how they work or.
I did go to the training that had redemption, they do offer it. A lot of our shut-offs, unless it's, events about collection base. And they still have access to be able to tamper, we have more control of the stop box current, the kind of. The design that's out there, so I think we will have it as an option, but it also is. 5 to 6 times the cost of it. It's $600 for options to have that ability. So as it comes down and as it gets more popular, so.
Any other questions or comments? And let's take a vote on the motion on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Item 3H is to authorize or request authorization for CEO and general manager to execute amendment number 1 to the professional service agreement with CDM Smith Inc. for the 2022 filter rehabilitation study.
Andrea, the filters at our fluid drive water treatment plant, half of them were installed in the 1940s, half of them were installed in the 1950s. They've been there for a long time. They were rehabbed in the 1980s. But it's certainly time, and we've been aware for some time, there was time for them to be rehabilitated again. At the November 2021 meeting of the board authorized an agreement with CDM Smith for what we call the 2022 filter rehabilitation study. And that study reviewed the existing filters, our filtration process, and it also investigated current technology options for rehab, launched some pilot testing that's ongoing in the nitrate removal facility right now. And we're looking for ways to increase capacity potentially, but also that we maintain or improve water quality characteristics of those filters. And give us some ideas on how we should move forward. That study that we did sort of ended with a conceptual design. Here are some general ideas of what you could do. The amendment that we're bringing here today would build on that and help us finalize proposed improvements. Just exactly what do we want to do to rehabilitate the filters? And we're looking at a much more complete rehab than we did in the 80s, where we'll probably remove the under drains, put totally different types of under drains in, new media, possibly dual media, 2 types of sand in the filters, really enhance the capabilities of those filters. But we need to amend their agreement to take the next step in the process. So that's what we're here asking to do, is really for permission to execute an amendment and negotiate a price with CDM Smith, who did the first study, to move that through to a second phase of the study for actual design of improvements based on pilot testing and the study that they did in the first phase.
Can I have a motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute amendment number 1 to the professional service agreement with CDM Smith Inc. in the amount of $298,900 for the 2022 filter rehabilitation study?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions?
So is this, if I'm understanding everything correct, was this amendment always planned that we would have a second, like, just, it's more of a phasing type thing versus we didn't realize we needed this type of thing?
No, it was always planned. And if you remember back to the Saylorville expansion design process, where we hired a consultant to do the study, and then we bid a design contract, a full-blown design, and we got one bid from the consultant who did the study, because they were the ones who did the study. And so we made the conscious decision that moving forward, we're gonna kind of vet who we think we want, who's the best qualified to do this work. We're gonna kind of negotiate the process in pieces with them. So that we're not asking them for a bid, which then we don't really have any ability to negotiate with them on. We're gonna say, okay, you got the study done, we're happy with what you did. And now we want to negotiate a price with you to do the next phase. And so that was a conscious decision. There'll probably be a third phase for this for construction. But that's kind of the new process that we're proposing to follow for some of these projects. When we want to do a study and then a design, it just doesn't make sense to try to bid them separately. But it does make sense to do them separately and then negotiate the phases. So that's what Lindsay, would you add anything to that?
No, I would just say, yeah, if you try to do that all up front, they don't know what they're designing. Or anything. So you kind of know more as you go.
But if we would have gotten to the end of the study and decided that we don't like to work with them,
Yeah, then you give you an opportunity to develop that.
does it set us back though? When we,
It's just, yes, because it'll take you a little time to get the next consultant and that familiar with what you've done so far. So you might have. to do things.
but we would retain the ownership of the study, so that next consultant would be able to review that study and.
Yep.
Any other questions or? Then, I'll call for a vote on the motion on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 3I is the request authorization for the CEO and general manager to execute change order number 3 to the 2023 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 1 project.
Andrea, this is one of many water main replacement contracts that we have out on the street. At the current time, the memo does a nice job of describing what was the original intent of this project that was awarded in April of 2023. That project had a couple of pretty small change orders. But now we're coming to the board for approval of a larger change order. This project actually did some work in the vicinity of the zoo, Southwest 9th Street, quite a little bit of work in the vicinity of the zoo. And when that was done, we recognized that there was some additional work immediately adjacent to that site that we could do to take care of about 300 feet of pipe that had also had a history of breaks. So what we did here is kind of take advantage of the fact that we had a good contractor and good prices and an open contract. And we want to just have them do the work. We want to change order it into the process to take advantage of the fact that good contractor, good prices, and they're there. Need to replace that. So we're here today asking for the board's authorization to execute this change order for that additional work that was done in Southwest.
I need a motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute change order number 3 to the 2023 Des Moines WMR Contract 1 project in the amount of $177,400.95.
So moved.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this part of what you presented in the plan? Not the change, but we are going to be seeing many, many of these coming through. Oh, the contract. Yes. Yeah, we have several of these bids. So. If we knew these were all coming, and I would anticipate probably change orders on many of those. We're gonna see a lot more of this, I would guess.
Well, I'm trying to be flexible in the way that we get the work done. Same neighborhood, if we have additional work and a good contractor and they're willing to do it. Frankly, our pipe prices are getting a little better. So we might have this opportunity more. But when we have good prices and a good contractor, this is smart.
Well, and Graham has said several times, and he probably was gonna say it if I would open the issue, but isn't this part of that reinvestment that Graham said we need to make sure people know what we are doing with
some of the funds we will be receiving too. And, this is a good example of the enhancement to that area overall. And Graham, every time I go by the airport, I always think about what you said about, we need to publicize this. We need to let people know that their money is working for them. The same thing is going on right at the Grand ML King area. So.
Yeah, you have a good point, Sue.
Well, it was your point.
Maybe that's why it's so good.
Any other comments or questions?
I just have a question. How do we budget for this? And maybe it just doesn't rise to the level that it's gonna make much difference, but if we do more and more these, how are we gonna budget?
We do projections as we know what projects we have going on.
Sure.
And how much money in the budget.
But these are change orders that are not anticipated. I don't know. Like I said, maybe they're not gonna be so great that it's gonna have a.
What's our budget? Probably 8 or 9 million this year, so I don't want to bill $150,000, but.
Sure.
This is gonna even out.
Well, and we would look at it as we go through the year, Diane, we have these contracts and we know what they bid for and we know how much we have left. And if we didn't have any left, we wouldn't change order it in. But when we're there and we have the opportunity, and we have money left in the budget, it just makes sense to do it this way. So maybe the answer to your question is, we don't budget every single street that we're gonna do exactly
Right.
for that whole $8 to $9 million. We budget a bucket of money, we know we have the need, and we start picking the most important ones. So there's opportunity to be flexible with exactly where we spend the money throughout the year. That's responsive to your question.
Let me just give a good price. Said like
We have a motion on the table, so we'll go ahead and take the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item 3J is to request permission to establish the date of a public hearing for ground lease agreement with the new Singular Wireless PCS LLC at the Tenny Standpipe as the date of the July 2024 board meeting.
And Andrew, I'm just gonna point out for the board that the next two items are almost exactly the same, except they're at different sites. So I'm gonna go through this. We have these longstanding agreements with various cell phone providers. This particular one at Tenny Standpipe on Merle Hay Road was with AT&T originally. Now they are doing business as Singular Wireless, but we've had this longstanding agreement with them. It's scheduled to expire in November of 2025, so there's still more than a year left, but they came to us and wanted to extend to make sure that they had the site locked down. But rather than extend the original agreement, we actually decided that we were gonna craft a new agreement that would deal with some of the challenges that we've had with these cell phone leases over the last 20+ years. And so you can see there in the memo that we've included provisions there where we can terminate the agreement upon 5 years' notice if we determine that that's necessary. Some liability insurance provisions in there to protect us from risk, reimbursement for legal and administrative costs. They always want to pay us a monthly fee, but then we always have some additional costs that can eat a bunch of that up. Automatic annual increases, initial 5-year term. So we're trying to enhance these agreements based on what we've learned over the past 20+ years. So we're here today recommending that the board establish a date of a public hearing, because this is a real estate transaction. And it's, fundamentally, it's a real estate thing, so we need to go through the public hearing process. But today, we're just asking the board to establish the date of the public hearing for July.
So let's get a motion to establish the date of the public hearing to consider the replacement ground lease agreement with New Singular Wireless PCS LLC at the Tinney Standpipe site as the date of the July 2024 board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Just say good job in and appropriately renegotiating these terms to recoup all of kind of the tediousness that having this type of agreement causes for staff.
Exactly.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item 3K is a request permission to establish the date of the public hearing for ground lease agreement with New Singular Wireless PCS LLC at the Wilchinski Standpipe as the date of the July 2024 board meeting.
Andrea, it's exactly the same concept, except that Telecorp Realty was the original leaseholder. New Singular Wireless is now the successor in interest, which I don't know exactly what that means, but we're dealing with them now. And same concept, updating the agreement, but today we're just asking the board to establish the date of the public hearing as the July board meeting.
So I need a motion to establish the date of the public hearing to consider the replacement ground lease agreement with New Singular Wireless PCS LLC at Wilchinski Standpipe at the date of the July 2024 board meeting.
So
Any discussion?
just curiosity questions, how overall, how many of these agreements do we have? Cell phone companies, and then what determines the price, just like small variation between these two?
Michael, you got the details on that for us?
Still with like close to 9. Okay. Some of the negotiations, monthly rate happened close to 2,000. So there was some effort then to kind of get it established, and there's escalation. Probably minus the email, but we recently kind of double checked to look at our monthly rates that we're charging relative to some data. Last year, we're not at the top of the list, we're not at the bottom, we're close to average, generally speaking. So we felt comfortable with that, and I like the fact that we've got this escalation building. Let these things be stacked.
It's like a market price comparison.
Is there,
And that's fine, because well, obviously we're not in the business of making money on right now cell phone towers, so I was just kind of more curious. It's right, not worth too much effort.
This is this is called strain for staff and manage these agreements at times, some of the property issues that come out. But this is also part of us playing a role in providing services to the community. Our facilities are often located at higher elevations, and selling their equipment, and some of that operating here needs a home with those elevations as well. So finding a way to do this with them and us uses some burden probably on the city for finding other places to put equipment as well. So despite those challenges, part of the broader solution, like operate that.
any other questions? Okay. All in favor for the motion on the table, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 3L is the acceptance of the 2023 FWTP distribution building improvements, structural repairs.
Andrea, this was a rehabilitation project on the second floor garage area, in the distribution building, where we used to park vehicles for a number of our staff, but because of the age of the structure and the implications of having salt that comes in off the roads impacting the concrete, we've decided to stop parking vehicles in this garage, but we didn't want to lose the garage and lose the functionality of that. And so we did some structural repairs in that building. The original estimate, as you can see there, was just under $100,000. We've completed all the work, but we did have a few change orders on the project. Most significantly, we found as we got into it, we found more areas that needed to be repaired, which frankly is not unusual when you're doing this kind of rehabilitation project. So some additional costs there. You can see the enumeration of the change orders, but the work is complete. And we're asking permission to award or to accept the contract, not award, to accept the contract in the amount of $140,000.
I'm looking for a motion to accept the 2023 FWTP distribution building improvements, structural repairs contract to be completed by Woodruff Construction, Inc. in the amount of $141,075.
Second. So I got a little confused in there. Staff was parking in there and then not parking in there and then structural changes. So what are we using it for?
Well, we're gonna repurpose the area. And I don't know that we've decided yet what we're gonna use it for, but there was enough structural concern there that even if we wanted to repurpose it for purposes other than parking vehicles, we're gonna need some repairs. So we have stopped parking vehicles and done these repairs. And now we've had a little bit of a study on what we're gonna do. I don't know that we've settled on that. But it's gonna be office area, storage, conference room, that kind of thing, instead of second floor garage.
Not confirmed, but just that's the.
Any other questions? All in favor for the motion on the table, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 3M is a 2024 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 3.
This is a public hearing.
Great, it sure is. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing for comments from the public regarding the form of contract, plans and specifications and estimated cost.
We
Sorry,
haven't received any written comments, Andrew.
any comments from folks here or online? Okay, not hearing any, I will close the public hearing. And ask if for a motion to approve the hold on, let me see. I pulled up my script and I'm thinking I'm just gonna get out of the script and go back to this. A motion for adoption of the form of contract, plans and specifications and estimated costs. Okay. And Ted, can we get an analysis of the bids received?
Yes,
We get a vote on the.
Oh,
motion to
sure.
approve the-
We sure can. You would think after, this long of doing these, I would get it right once. Go ahead and vote on the motion on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, now, Ted, can we have an analysis?
absolutely. Plans and specifications for this contract taken out by a number of bidders. There's a note in here also that staff reached out to several contractors just prior to the bid, to remind them. We did get 4 bids. And all 4 of them were below the estimate, which shows again that our pipe prices are coming down a bit. The low bid was submitted by J&K Contracting LLC. J&K has successfully completed a number of projects for Des Moines Waterworks in the past, so staff would recommend the board award the contract, Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 3 to J&K Contracting.
So I need a motion to award that contract, correct? All right. So can I have a motion to award the 2024 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 3 project to J&K Contracting LLC in the amount of $359,275 and authorize the chairperson and CEO and general manager to execute the contract?
So, second.
Any discussion on that award? And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we're on to our information items. And the first information item we have are our board committee reports, starting with the Finance and Audit Committee.
This month, earlier, we had our audit report from RSM, so it was heavy into the details of financial auditing, riveting. Followed every single line of it, but that was good. I think most importantly, clean judgment and financially good position. I think we feel safe that, as board members and citizens, and should feel good that we're a well-managed institution from a financial standpoint. Which is also good as we prepare to become a larger regional entity. Maybe any other.
Yeah. Sure was really.
In our planning committee,
Planning, we reviewed the Merle Hay placemaking slides that were presented to us, and we asked for all of those to be shared with everyone, and it's great. I mean, that's an area that I think we need help in our city.
Mhm.
And so it was exciting to see what they have planned here. Hopefully I'll give a chance to that help as well.
questions for either of those committee reports? Moving on to our board membership reports, starting with the Central Iowa Waterworks Board.
I can start on that. We have our board meeting tomorrow. And we continue to work through the details of starting up, the organization. And there are a lot of them, so you can look at the agenda and see what we need motions on. I will report that we have retained a firm to help us in the search for executive director. The executive committee had the first meeting with him today to start the process. We are hoping to complete the process. I think the timeframe that was laid out was about 4 months to get from here to there. Sounds aggressive, but he sounded optimistic that we could get it completed within that time. So next phase is he will be talking to a lot of the stakeholders on what they're interested in. And putting together the job description. He's getting back to us. He's got some information on what may be comparable salary wise. So he'll be getting back to us on information on that. I don't know, Amy, do you want to talk about any of the financial things that we're going to be taking?
There are several financial items on the Central Iowa Waterworks Board agenda. We'll be asking the board to adopt a investment policy, which was modeled, frankly, a lot after the waterworks, and also some Western waterworks portions as well. We will be establishing. We started my time, but I think we will be establishing an expenditure and purchasing policy, much like we've discussed recently. We'll be asking the board to approve that. But there were several items.
And I think the other point when you're building out the agenda that we wanted to make sure that we talk about what's going on with our water supply, with the nitrates. And so you will be Ted will be making a presentation to everyone at Central Iowa Water Works as to what we're dealing with the nitrates that are coming down the river. And now I think an update on the flooding, et cetera. But we do want to make sure everyone knows, and I think we've announced this, Diane is on the executive. And so she is in on all of the discussions that take place outside of the full board. And then I have been nominated as one of the finance committee, which Amy is very involved in leading all of our financial for the organization.
And I did think of the agenda item. I knew I was missing something. We'll be asking the board to approve a reserve policy.
Yes.
And the recommendation is our policy, 25% of operating expenses.
And we'd hope to get there in 5 years.
Yeah. So I think we're hoping to stage it in.
So maybe Ted, you can talk about this now, but under the agreement that everybody signed on to was that they adopted the water shortage policy that we have, and maybe Ted can talk about the impact of nitrates and how that fits into that. It doesn't sound right to say the water shortage
Yeah,
plan may come into effect, but it really is how much water we can process and send out.
right. It's more of a capacity allocation plan where it might be drought and shortage, it might be mechanical failure, but it also might be water quality that's preventing us from producing as much water as we need. And that's kind of where we are right now. I had it on my list to share and I'll just go out of order here if that's okay.
Sure.
Um,
Because it will come up tomorrow.
right, and I am gonna share it with the Central Iowa Water Works Board tomorrow, but nitrates spiked up again quite a bit on both the Des Moines and the Raccoon River on Sunday and Monday. Yesterday, the Raccoon River was 18.23 milligrams per liter, which for many of us is just a number, but compared to a drinking water standard of 10, that's very high. Raccoon, which we're trying to avoid, unfortunately has a lot of influence on our gallery, so that could push the concentrations up there. The Moines River has kind of been all over the place. Over that period of time, it went up a couple milligrams per liter and now it's coming back down. But the challenge we're going to have is with those high nitrate concentrations, as demand goes up, we just don't have enough denitrification capacity. So if it doesn't rain, we are going to be looking at implementing our water shortage. The first step in that water shortage plan is a voluntary step where we will be asking customers who are watering their grass to reduce the amount of water they're using by half. That's voluntary, but hopefully people will heed that warning. That will prevent us from having to take so much water out of the river, which will make our job easier in terms of complying with the nitrate standard. If that doesn't help, if it doesn't reduce demand, then we may have to go to the next step, which is prohibition. We've never done that before. But we could get to that point this year where in order to stay in compliance with the drinking water standard for nitrate, we're gonna have to prohibit lawn watering so we don't have to use so much of that high nitrate river water. Big challenge for us is with all these variables, is it going to rain? What's the river going to do? What's the gallery going to do? What's demand going to do? These steps can happen in very quick succession. So we're expecting if it rains tonight, which they're projecting quite a bit of rain, an inch or two in the metro. If it rains, then that will push this conversation out 2 or 3 or 4 days. If it doesn't rain, we could be there by the first phase. But all those variables make this kind of a 3-dimensional chess game, trying to figure out what to do. But we're going to need all of the communities in the metro to get behind this initiative. If it doesn't rain and demand continues to go up, we need people to back off on water. We're going to need all those communities to participate in delivering that message to their customers. So that's a conversation we'll have tomorrow. This board is well aware of all that and what it means and how challenging it can be, but it's gonna be a real education for the Central Iowa Waterworks Board to help them understand these challenges and the fact that we're all gonna have to manage them collectively if we're gonna be successful.
I think that I'm going to ask the CIWW board tomorrow if we can put together an ad hoc task force just to talk about this. It's gonna be a communication issue for everybody, as I understand it, Ted, that if we were to get to prohibition of lawn watering, we don't have really any enforcement.
Well,
mechanism.
the enforcement that's in the 2080 agreement basically is left to the individual communities, that they're supposed to reduce demand through whatever means and methods they see fit. We have enforcement, but it's, sending Rob's folks out to turn people's water off, and that's a monumental task when you're trying to do all the other things that we have to do every day. We're hoping that if we get to a prohibition and we communicate that broadly, that there'll be some peer pressure that will help reduce lawn watering, and neighbors and customers of businesses and whatnot will understand that it's important, and they'll influence the behavior of their neighbors and their businesses. But yeah, enforcement will be the challenge, and I think probably be delayed by a period of time until we let everybody get used, try to let the peer pressure work. And then if we just have some people who refuse to comply, it might become a service termination issue, which is covered in our rules and regs in Des Moines.
But it doesn't help you enough if they don't do it immediately when the need is there.
Yeah, then you violate the standard,
Yeah.
right?
So I think we need some more attention to how does that all work? And do we have other enforcement mechanisms, other things that we can do? We may be looking at discussions of rate structures on irrigation. I'm not sure everybody has it. If we've talked here about inclining block rates, we may want to do some data analysis to see who's irrigating when. I know we did some voluntary things a few years ago where we asked them to stagger. But how much more opportunity is there out there for staggering that we haven't taken advantage of? I mean, I just think there are some attention that we need to put to this, because it happens during drought and it happens during, right?
And I think Central Iowa is a great venue for that discussion, because now all the players at the table, they have some responsibility. Historically, this has been perceived as very much a Moines Waterworks issue problem. So I think it'll be a great opportunity for discussion, but it's unfortunate that, and ironic, that now that we finally have water in the rivers, it's contaminated. And can't use it. So
Well, how does everybody else clean their water? I mean,
everybody like who?
anybody else that is dealing with nitrate issues in the state, and they certainly don't have the capacity of these nitrate removal systems that we do.
Right. Most of the other communities in the state, frankly, are so much smaller than we are, that it's just a smaller problem. A lot of them are using wells, but there are other communities in the state of Iowa who have to consider nitrate, and a lot of them do blending. Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, they have radial collector wells like we do. They don't have near the problem that we have in terms of the nitrates never get as high. And we are at the bottom of the funnel in one of the toughest places in the state. So I'm not saying that no one else sees nitrates close to 20 in their source water, but I'll bet you it is very. For example, the Missouri or the Mississippi would never see that.
Right.
Change. Most of the other rivers in the state probably don't get that high. I don't have all that data at the top of my head, but we have one of the most challenging source waters. It's part of our.
we've kind of jumped around. Do we have any more questions or comments to share on the Central Iowa Waterworks Board topic?
No, but I would just say if there are any questions or issues, we are talking to them multiple times during the month. Let us know if there are things, or has questions as our wants to bring forward, because we can easily add it to an agenda.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Graham, the Greater Des Moines Botanical Garden Board.
I don't have, you'll see the quarterly report in there, and I don't have anything to add beyond that.
Great. And then we have the Des Moines Waterworks Park Foundation. They also have a report in there, and I'll just point to their concentrated effort right now in trying to find an executive director to kind of lead the organization into this next phase. They have received several different candidate resumes from several different candidates and are going through that process of slimming down the pile and conducting interviews. And this past weekend, they hosted a neighborhood party, I guess is the right word, appreciation party, to introduce the park and to build connections and support in the work that is happening within this community, in this neighborhood. Pat, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I actually wasn't there, so I think you covered everything from what I read through the minutes.
Thank you. And Ted, is there anything else you want to talk about, such as the emergency West High lift pump repairs?
Yes, yes, I do have a couple of things that I will share today. Back on the 29th of May, I sent the board an email letting you know that we had an emergency repair of West High Lift number 5 motor that we needed to get going with because of another fairly long lead time, 15 weeks. That email went out to everyone on the board. In the packet this month is the kind of the justification for that Nathan Casey put together, his certification that we needed to do. His overview and explanation of the need for the emergency repair and my certification is there, just to bring that forward to the board, so that you can see that we have moved forward with that emergency repair. I would also direct the board's attention to the safety update that's in the packet this month. We're giving an example of a static inspection, and one of our KPIs this year is to do 200 leading indicators in terms of a safety perspective. That would, we could get every employee to do one static inspection, job site inspection, near miss report. We would meet that goal. We would also get a lot of people involved in safety and have a lot of conversation about safety. So this month's safety update is an example of just exactly what we're looking for static inspection. Those I think are going to be posted around the utility to make sure everybody understands. We're targeting 200 of those. We're a little behind schedule, but we're going to kind of redouble our efforts here to try to get more of that done. I will point out that on the agenda, you'll notice that today we have had 2 recordable injuries at the utility, which we never want anyone to get hurt, but 2 recordable injuries at the halfway point in the year is not terrible performance, but better than we've done in some recent years. And so we continue to try to focus on safety and reducing injuries, especially those reportable injuries that tend to be a little more serious. I also mentioned, just from a flooding perspective, that we're not expecting high water on the Raccoon, at least not yet, based on the rain that has fallen thus far. But the Des Moines River, Saylorville Reservoir is projected to rise by 30 feet over the next week, which will get it in 10 feet or so of the spillway crest. And Kyle, you were sharing with me that Outflow from the reservoir is gonna be increased to 16,000 CFS, which is kind of the maximum that doesn't cause flooding, that's kind of bankful. Is that how you describe it?
Yeah, it's significant, but not create a lot of property any. So they, the reservoir gets closer to overtopping, they can't release water, will cause water. Minor flooding. 16,000.
So they don't have the next step scheduled, 20,000 isn't in the plan.
And how long did they think where that amount of water has through?
Before the reservoir gets back to the normal flow,
Right.
it's probably close to a month. When they release the water back out, they control how fast the reservoir drops, so that it doesn't create erosion. The things. Yeah, it's gonna continue to go up for a week or two, and then the things settle.
And the only other thing I have today is to just note that the June 2024 board meeting will be Michael McKernan's last board meeting as Des Moines Waterworks employee, as the director of engineering.
I would ask way harder questions.
Yeah, it's we're turning the page here.
We are turning the page, Lindsay will be in this spot next month. Mike Zocker left, will take the seat that she. Appreciate you recognizing the moment. A chance in the next week and a half to share my soul at the top of the list. I've been blessed to be part of this organization for a long time, so we'll start today if I communicate that. So, thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
I think some of us may have.
Yeah.
I apologize that it escaped my mind that this would be your last board meeting. I had talked to Ted about your exciting windowless party.
This is an exciting room.
But I know that I have not had the chance to work with you as long as some of the others around this table and on the call, but you've been an incredible partner, a wealth of information, and done so much to think holistically about our community and our organization and this and the work that we do here, that you will be missed. You will still be invited to the trivia parties and other events. We'll need that. But I hope you enjoy this next phase and this next chapter, you and your family.
And Mike, you have helped lead us through some very difficult times. I mean, COVID, who would have ever thought that we're going through that type of thing, changes in leadership. And you've just always been so even. You don't get excited about things. We can tell when you really want something, but you don't express a lot of emotion, but just present us with business facts. And it's just been a real pleasure.
I just like to add, I think, Mike, your constant, never failing professionalism and public service is an example for a lot of us to follow. I mean, I think that somebody that serves in the roles that you've served at Des Moines Waterworks and with the integrity and commitment that you've served, the people that we all represent, the ratepayers of Des Moines and throughout this region, are much better off because of what you do and have done every day. And as you walk on to what's next, you should be very proud of the service that you provided here. You went above and beyond a job. And as a board member, I sincerely appreciate all you've done to make Waterworks the institution that it is.
Appreciate the kind words, Graham. Very much.
They talk about your professionalism and your evenness, and I've always appreciated your sense of humor.
Some of that. I appreciate all the kind words. A lot of variables have been into this decision, there's a lot of emotion. Sometimes getting my mind straight, collecting my thoughts is difficult way to be honest with you. One thing that got tapped out in an email on February 9th. It was officially communicated. Moines Waterworks should always be a part of it, so I've been stepping away. With some other things to report, I'm dragging some DNA with me. Better for it. So, again, the kind words, recognition of the effort and making the way it was done. Very much
I can speak highly of retirement.
putting that in full knowledge.
Oh,
I think that's it.
yeah, with that, I think,
I have one question, and that is, when are we gonna? I didn't know when we're gonna do this, Ted and John, the update on the PFAS. Is that at a planning?
It is
That's
planning,
planning.
and it's the third Tuesday of July. And so I think that'll be a very interesting conversation, interesting insights there. John is actually going to provide the update. So any or all of the members of the board who are able to attend that meeting, I would encourage you to. That will be a virtual meeting, so you can zoom in.
And I would suggest we notice it at the option for a closed session. I mean, it does concern matters in litigation, so it may be appropriate to go into closed session, part of it.
Okay. Very good. Good to know. All right.
all right, thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
I, Mike, I feel like you need like a mic drop or like
Yeah,
a,
mic drop.
throw a plate again.